Hello and good evening. I am Robert. I'm going to be talking about our multi-engine ground scenario. I want to apologize up front. I know the recommendation is to have more professional dress, but I have a very early flight to catch in the morning, traveling across the country. Just got done packing, putting the kids to sleep, and trying to get this done before I leave. So I'll make sure I do that next time as far as dressing up a little bit. Our scenario is Flying Mother. It's a multi-engine safety and decision-making scenario, and for Aviation 430. The scenario overview is that we're a private pilot, just purchased a new multi-engine airplane, looking to fly our family across the country from the New England area to the Midwest. Our goal is to demonstrate knowledge of multi-engine operations, safety, decision making, kind of hit on a lot of the things that we talk about um, throughout our private and instrument training into commercial as well. A lot of the big acronyms we use when it comes to planning, we're going to dive into some of those as well as a couple additional topics on decision making, ADM, the SRM model, and some of the other pressures that come along with planning a flight like this. So I'm going to start with the single pilot resource management. This is actually a new topic to me. I haven't heard this one before, or if I have, I've glossed over it in my past experiences. So it was one of the things I was looking forward to learning about. It was one of the things I had on my KWL. Single pilot resource management is the process of managing all available resources we have, both on the aircraft as well as not on the aircraft. It could be before the flight or handheld type equipment that we can use. It includes, making sure that us as pilots are ready, our physical and mental state is in a condition to have a safe and successful flight. Um, and it applies to many of us as we fly single pilot right now, building time, flying family members as we get our license and start flying other airplanes. I have an Army background, so most of my flying has been multi-pilot operations. And as I was learning about SRM, I found that a lot of the characteristics of it and the ways that it apply, it flows over into multi-pilot operations as well. There's a lot of bleed over and things that you can learn about in SRM that apply in a multi-pilot, dual pilot type scenario as well. Some of the key components of it, aeronautical decision making, task management, situational awareness, communication, and planning. There's five major components to it. It's called the five Ps. It's to plan, plane, pilot, passengers, and programming. And all of them, to me at first, made sense. They were exactly what they sounded like. Plan, all the things we did when we got our private and instrument and commercial as well. Pre-flight planning, weather, NOTAMs, routes, fuel, terrain, all those planning considerations for the actual flight. The plane is a lot of our acronyms, such as aviates when it comes to maintenance, doing a thorough pre-flight, making sure that we understand the systems, making sure we understand um, the aircraft itself and its maintenance condition. Pilot, we're all familiar with the I'm safe acronym: illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and emotion. Passengers was a somewhat of a new one. I have flown passengers before when I was in the Army, and the passengers I've flown they were never helpful when it came to a flying standpoint. They were always in the back. We were separate in the cockpit. However, if you are flying family members, there are situations in which they can be helpful. So you want to manage your expectations and understand, in what ways they can help, but also understand in what ways they can be distracting. If people have a fear of flying or uneasiness in smaller airplanes, if you're small and flying like a light twin, for example, there can certainly be distractions as you want to try to keep your friends and families comfortable, but also have a safe flight. The last one was programming. This was one that needed to read a little bit more about, but it basically goes over the having the proper setup, monitoring of all of our avionic and automation if we're using an autopilot system. It's really about thoroughly understanding the onboard tools that we have available. They can be extremely helpful, as we all know. Autopilot can be our friend. All the G1000 type avionics that I fly with have an abundance of resources within them that can be extremely helpful. However, they can also be a distraction. And if you're flying single pilot and you have passengers and you have all these other things to think about, messing around with an avionics suite as well can just add to the distractions. One component of the SRM is the aeronautical decision making. Just a summary of it, it's a systemic process used to constantly make the best decision. Basically, you're given a set of circumstances. What process can you use to make the best decision? It involves evaluating all of your hazards, assessing your risks, analyzing and using controls, and then monitoring your results. The PAVE is one acronym that we're also all familiar with. That falls under kind of the perceive portion of ADM. There's perceive, process, and perform. PAVE is under perceive, evaluating risks is under the process, and then executing our chosen course and managing our workload is under perform. PAVE model I'm not going to dive into. I know we're all familiar with that. Decide model as well, detect, estimate, choose, identify, do, and evaluate. And one point that I want to bring up in here is that this, avoiding controlled flight into terrain is a very avoidable situation, and this SRM and ADM process can really help us avoid getting ourselves into that sort of situation. All right, so risk management and decision making in flight. There's a couple scenarios I want to bring up for the flight. Making sure that we have a sound go no go process. We're making all of the right decisions as we're flying our family from New England to the Midwest. We're going to do all the things in the ADM process, do all the 5 Ps, do a thorough pre-flight, make sure that we have really sound go, no-go decisions, and that we're not being pressured into completing this flight when we're not ready for it. Either in a scenario, an engine failure in a multi-engine airplane is something new for me as well. On the airplane side, we practiced it in the helicopter on the multi-engine helicopters, and there is a lot of bleed over and a lot of considerations that are the same. For example, the last bullet there of identify, verify, and secure a failed engine. We would do the same thing in a helicopter. We want to make sure that, even if you have a passenger, for example, hey, I might just double check this. This says left engine here before I turn off the wrong engine. So normal operations and safety policies, it starts with planning and pre-flight. It just want to double check that I didn't skip a slide. Starts with the planning and pre-flight. We want to apply standard procedures for taxi, takeoff, climb, cruising, exercise, checklist discipline, especially when we're flying with family members and we have all those distractions we were talking about. Make sure that we're hitting all the checklist stuff, even if we're familiar with the airplane. We don't want to skip any steps. Using the automation responsibly to reduce our workload, and just making sure that we're maintaining focus on our situational awareness and crew coordination. My biblical interpretation and application for this comes from Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. It just kind of reminds us to perform all of our duties with diligence, discipline, and a servant mindset. As if working for the Lord and not for human masters. We're in this situation, we're flying our family, we're flying our mother, or we're going to see our mother-in-law rather, and we have a long flight. We're serving ourselves, we're serving our passengers, but work at it with all your heart as though you're working for the Lord. Really brings a humility aspect to it. It highlights the responsibility that you have as a pilot, and really makes you understand how being a professional, even around those that you're family and friends with, also is extremely important as a pilot. Everybody wants to get there safely more than anything else. And then my references to end it. So thanks for listening. Hope you were able to learn a thing or two.